Hey, welcome back to the channel. In this video we're going to be working on the chassis for the RX7 here. And part of the reason I bought this kit was because it's based off an anime, so you can kind of do whatever you want because it's not 100% real car, but it's real enough you can make it just like it is in the anime series or the movies. I know there's two different versions of the car between those two, and there are subtle differences, so even they didn't do it 100% the same thing both times. So what I've decided is the RX7 chassis are actually pretty simple. They're all basically just flat black, and the control and your control arms on the suspension are all aluminum colored. They're metallic colored. This is metal because it's kind of a heat shield. That's plastic. Same thing with these, black, flat black, aluminum. So I've decided I'm going to do that. But what I want to do is, because I know they never show the bottom end of the cars, is I want to show you guys how to do a bit of weathering with the airbrush, which, it's not really heavy-duty weathering like a lot of people do online, but it is some weathering, and it does make the chassis and the underbodies of your cars look better. So I already sat down. As you can see, I've got all the parts all kind of laid out where they go. I cleaned everything up already. I didn't think you needed to see that again. I glued those together. These are going to have to be painted before they get glued together. Again, a lot of this stuff, you have to look through your instruction sheets. Stop, think about it for a second. What do I need to paint? How am I going to paint it? And then you got to build accordingly. A lot of times you can't just throw everything together and then call it done. So for this, I've decided I'm going to paint the shocks, the struts, in aluminum, and then the springs are going to probably be blue, just to put some color under the car. And then same thing with the sway bar. I'll paint this the way they are on the cars, as I mentioned earlier, the aluminum, semi-gloss black. Actually, I'm going to bare metal foil that, and then I'm going to do the sway bar in blue. And then this is going to be semi-gloss black, flat black, aluminum. These are all semi-gloss black. And then the rear axles are semi-gloss black. The covers are aluminum. The half shafts we can do however we want. In reality, usually those are bare steel. They kind of rust out after a while. Some of them are painted. You can do whatever you want. That's the beauty of this kit. And then the one thing I did want to mention on this is the exhaust. On the instructions, they say to cut your exhaust pipe right here to put this muffler on. But I was looking at it earlier when I was working on it, and it looks like it's exactly the same as a muffler that comes with the kit already. It's just the original black kit part has two outlets to it, where this one only has the one. But it looks to me like this outlet's the same as this one, just a little bit longer. So I'm just going to cut this off and then modify the exhaust pipe. Just cut it back a little bit so that fits on there the same way it should on that one. So just make it a little easier, and that's easy enough. Alright. That looks like it to be. And we'll fit that to the car when we're done with it. That'll go on last. So that's what I'm going to do for that. I might have to drill that out a little bit. I'll finish it up. That's not completely finished. That doesn't look that great, but you know. So that's that. And let's get over and let's get some of this paint work taken care of. And then we can really get the final assembly going here. We're back on the build bench here. I've got everything painted. I didn't show me painting black parts and repainting them black. But I did do some detail paint work on the exhaust system. I painted steel and steel, and that's aluminum and that's just silver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in and I'm going to rust out the pipe flange there and the steel pipe there, which is kind of prototypical of how they rust in real life. And then I'm going to cover this in bare metal to make a shield on it. So I'll show that later. The chassis is done. I got the rear suspension all put together. Everything's all painted and detailed out. All I did was paint the springs. All I did was paint the shocks aluminum, the struts, I guess, whatever you want to call them, and then I did the springs in blue, which, if you notice how they fit in that pocket, you can't even tell they're painted, so that was kind of a waste of time. But painted that silver, did all these in steel, and that's ready to go. And then I did the front the same way, did this sway bar in blue to match the springs, and then did the A-arms in steel, and then I did this in bare metal. It's actually not bare metal, it's some stuff I found online, and it's just garbage. I don't like it. So I think after I'm done with this, I'm going to throw it away. But that's all together. It's all ready to go. I got the steering rack done. I got both the front spindles done. So everything's ready to go. I'm going to take it over and onto the paint bench, and we're going to do some detail work on it with the airbrush to show you how to do some weathering. And then I'm going to glue it together after I do the weathering, because I want to do this where I still have access to some of the other parts that would be covered up with the parts glued in place. So that's going to be the next part. So we're going to take this over to the bench and get going on that. And we're back here at the paint table. So we're going to start with doing the weathering on the chassis. Now before I start, I want to say, doing weathering technique like this, it's, think of it as a banana. You want it to look good, have a little bit of black on it so it looks tasty. You don't want to overdo it because then it just ruins it. It looks like garbage. So for this, I'm going to start with gray super primer, like always. We're going to do some red super primer. And then I'm going to use this RAL 7013 brown gray, because that looks like that kind of weird color that cars get on the bottom after a while. So specifically, we're going to start with the brown gray. Now, I already said earlier that I did not glue anything together. I just did the major sub-assemblies, and this is why. So if you want to get any of this stuff sprayed, and I don't know how well the camera's picking that up, but all I did was sprayed enough on there just to kind of give it a coat, because you're not trying to paint the color. You're just trying to kind of kill all the black that's everywhere. So I'll make sure that's pressed down the way it goes. And then when I do these, I like to spray them kind of in a front to back motion. can kind of let it build up a little more in the areas where you know it's going to kind of build up. Okay, then come around and just give a little bit of a brush. Right there. Okay, and then I'm going to pull this off because I want to get under here just the slightest bit. And again, basically all I'm trying to do is just kill that shine. Okay. And I'll put that back in because I'm not going to do anything else under there. I don't think I am anyway. So we'll clean the airbrush out and then we'll get back on it with the red here in a second. Okay, now we got the red super primer loaded into the airbrush. And then again, you want to kind of just focus in on all the stuff that would be rusty. Right there. And on these cars, the heat shield, of course. The exhaust pipe. That subframe a little bit. And then right there, right along that, these shields. That bar. So that rear subframe. Okay. And that is that. No, I'm not going to show it because I just showed how to do it, but I would do the same thing on the exhaust system. I'd spray over the bare metal foil for the heat shield with the tan and a little bit of the rust, and then I would go over just the muffler portion. I would do that with just the tan because all of your stuff that's aluminum is just it wouldn't rust, so you really wouldn't need the red on it that much. And then again, you're just trying to make a look. You're not trying to do anything else. Now, sometimes when you do this, you have to kind of color correct a bit, and that's where the gray super primer comes in handy. But this turned out really nice. I'm really happy with how this works. So I'm not going to do anything with the gray. I'm just going to call that done, and we're going to get it glued together and put it into the car, and it should look fantastic. So next video we'll be back, or the next clip, we're going to be back over to the building bench getting this all put together, and we'll do some dry brushing and some final details. Okay, so to start off with the chassis weathering, we're going to start with doing some rust on the exhaust pipe. I'm going to use this Modern Masters Rust Effect. This stuff's really good. It's just a little set. You get these. I picked this up over at Joann's, I believe it was. I think they sell these also at Hobby Lobby. So check them out if you've never used this before. It's cool stuff. You're gonna see how good it works here in a second. So to start with it, you have to use their primer. Now this stuff's all water-based, so probably shouldn't have reached across like that, but so little dab of that. Now with this stuff, I found that if you go a little lighter with the primer, seems to work a little better on your end product on these exhaust systems, because they never really get like super rusty. Okay, so there's that. So we're going to stop right there for just a second, clean off the brush, and then we'll get to doing let that dry for a second, then we'll get to doing the iron second coat. Primer's dry, now it's time for the iron step, so we're just going to put some of this on there. Now all of this is water soluble, so it just cleans right up. It's really, really impressive. And again, same thing with the primer, you kind of want to go lightly on this. Okay, so that's the iron. Again, we'll clean up the brush with just a little bit of water in the sink, and then we'll spray on the activator, and that'll be the last step. Okay, so the last step is to spray the rust activator. This comes with the spray bottle, but the pump on it broke, so I just used my own. It's exactly the same way it works. Just spray it on there lightly. And then just let that dry, and everywhere that iron built up on that primer, it's going to turn to rust, and the longer you leave it, the better it works. And you don't need to go crazy with the activator, just got to get it wet. You don't need to have it dripping off or soaking or anything. So we'll let that dry, and then we'll take it over to the paint table, and I will show you why we started with that and how we're going to do the rest of the weathering on that chassis. So we are just about to get this thing finished up. All I want to do is I want to dry brush a couple of items just to get a little bit of the detail out of it. That's not the color I even wanted to use on that. I want to start with the steel. So I'm going to start with the steel, and I know that these cars are really, that they're going to be really super taken care of, but also, if all you do is mountain race constantly, then they're going to be a tiny bit beat up underneath. So again, in this case, it's just use your that was a little too much. Okay. So on the rail car, those are steel, and when they do get a little weathered up like that, it seems like the very leading edges of these are what really picks up the rock chips. Okay, so we're done with that. And next one, I'm going to use semi-gloss black, because you know if you're doing drifting, you're getting rubber all over the place, and I want this to stand out a little better. We're going to use the old toothpick and paintbrush style here. I don't know if anyone has ever seen this before. I'm sure you guys have. Just gotta practice it a little bit first here. Like I said, I'm only using this because I want it to really stick out. Maybe a tiny bit in the front. Okay. That's the other secret to doing a lot of these. I guess it's not a secret, but that's the trick to doing a lot of the weathering is you got to get in there and you got to kind of do it up in layers, and you know, kind of like anything else in modeling, you got to think it out first, because you can't just do it on the fly and get really good results. You got to have a bit of a plan. Okay, so just got to get in here and start with putting the front end together. Which I immediately did wrong. There we go. Okay. And it turns firm, but it does turn. That's perfect. And then for the rest of the build, I'm going to be putting it together with some super glue. I like to use super glue just out of the bottle, toothpick. Sometimes I'll daub it on the top of the lids on stuff, but this is going to take a bit, so don't be afraid to put it on where you need to. Yeah, that looks good. So always go over everything, double check it before you finish glue anything in place. Make sure you're happy with how everything's turned out. So I just got to figure out how this glues on. So those glue into the pockets. These are going to glue into right there, and then this up here glues in. And then there's a spot right there where the drive shaft goes, and then there's a spot right here where that torque arm goes. So that clipped in. Okay, that piece clipped in. That pushed in, and that pushed in and came over. So that is done and done. So next up, we'll put the exhaust system in, and then we'll put the tires on. Okay, so next time we'll get the tires on. Actually, next video we're going to finish up the exhaust pipe. We're going to get it put on, or we're going to get it put on. It's already finished up. And then we're going to I'm going to show you how to detail out the tires. And we're going to repaint the wheels because I don't really like the way those look. I like the way they look on the movies better. So we're going to do that, and I'll show you how to do those, and we'll get everything all detailed out, and then we'll be done with the chassis completely. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and if you have any questions or comments, just leave them down below, and thanks again for watching.